An AI agent has determined that a customer deserves a 75,000 rupee refund. However, should it execute this automatically? One wrong tool call could lead to a significant financial error. AI should act, but humans should control. Welcome back. In this video, I am introducing MuleSoft MCP Connector 1.6 featuring a capability called Elicitation, which allows a MuleSoft MCP server to pause an AI-driven tool execution and ask a human for structured input and continue only after receiving a response. In this video, we will build a human-in-the-loop refund workflow where any elicitation-capable MCP client will ask MuleSoft to issue a refund. MuleSoft will validate the request, pause the action, request an approval decision, and only then call Salesforce, SAP, NetSuite, or any other backend service that manages the refund. The real challenge isn't whether the AI can call an API. MuleSoft has mastered API connectivity. The challenge is allowing the agent to move quickly without granting unchecked authority. We want the AI to ask MuleSoft to perform an action. MuleSoft validates the policy, pauses the tool execution, and presents the business context to a human for approval. Once a decision is made, MuleSoft resumes the transaction with a structured, auditable decision. This is what MCP Elicitation enables. This interaction is not just a simple pop-up. It's a protocol-level exchange between the MCP server and client using a structured schema while allowing the client to control the display. Now, let's see things in action.
So as part of this execution, I have implemented MCP server with single tool called issue_refund. And I have used the latest MCP connector from MuleSoft side, which is 1.6.0 last month release. It has added new extra feature, which is elicitation listener and create elicitation. And as part of this particular session, we have discussed what is elicitation, why it is required. So whenever you need, your tool needs the input from the human, your tool needs human in the loop, then you can use create elicitation operation to get the input from your human. So as part of this tool implementation, there are 4 important activities. Okay, the first activity where we'll be capturing the input from the client, whether it's MCP client or your AI agent. That input will be captured. And here I have given the description, okay, and then I have given the input schema. And let me quickly show you how that input schema looks like. There will be 4 important properties, required properties: order ID, amount, currency, and region. Okay, so these 4 properties will be coming as part of the incoming request. The session ID will be captured here. The incoming refund request will be captured here. That request will be validated here. Let me show you. So few flags I have hard coded here. Is eligible, I have hard coded it. Existing refund, I have hard coded it. These 2 flags can be calculated on the fly on real production use case. But right now here I have hard coded it. Okay, I'm calculating the risk flag. If the amount is greater than 1 lakh, then it's a high value refund request. Then I am calculating the policy result. So based on these 2 parameters, I'm deciding what is the policy result. In our case, since I have hard coded it, it will be always pass. Then I'm calculating whether we need the approval or not, right? That will be decided based on the amount value. If it is greater than the 50,000, so we have decided threshold value is 50,000. If it is greater than 50,000, then we need the approval, or the amount is greater than the 1 lakh itself, the risk flag will be true, and then we need the approval. So based on this validated payload, we'll be deciding whether to choose this path or this path. So here I'm checking whether policy result is pass or not. If not, then stop there itself. If yes, so policy result is pass, then we'll be deciding whether we need approval. If the amount is greater than 50,000, then we need approval. If we need approval, then create the elicitation where we'll be passing a proper approval form to human, and then they'll be responding via that form. So there are 2 entries will be there in that form. So first entry is the enum property where we'll be expecting 2 values, approve and reject, which is required. Second, the region for the decision. Okay, why you're taking that decision. So these 2 values will be expected by your tool execution, and till that time the execution will be pause here. Okay, once human responds to that approval form or approval request, then based on the input provided by the the reviewer, the human being, then we'll continue. Okay. So if the reviewer responded with approve, then go ahead, execute the refund, and then build the response for the MCP client, and then done. If the approver or the reviewer reject it, then don't do anything, stop there. If none of these inputs provided by the reviewer, then go ahead and decline. If approval is not required, then what we're going to do is we're going to execute the refund directly, format the response, send that response back to the MCP client. I already ran this MCP server, which is running on my localhost port 8081. Let's see how we can connect this MCP server, which has the elicitation capability. Okay, so make sure you're using a MCP client which has elicitation capability. Okay, if your client doesn't have elicitation capability, then the request which is going from your MuleSoft flow to that particular, which is your MCP server to your MCP client, you won't be able to send that request properly, and you won't be able to capture the human inputs back to your MCP server properly. Okay, so make sure you have MCP client which has elicitation capability. So if you don't have that, what I use this approach, I host my MCP inspector locally, and that will have the elicitation capability. So these are the steps, these are the commands you can use. So you copy, bring your terminal, execute those, and these guys will be, make sure you have npx installed. And if you trigger this, it will start your MCP client on your browser. Okay. Now here we can go ahead and we can say Streamable HTTP, which is, this is my MCP server endpoints, and I'll say connect. Then you can go here, list tools. It will show you the tools which are available with your MCP server. If you show this, it will ask you to pass these required values. So we'll go ahead and let's say run this tool. Now see, it is expecting now input from the human. So now human came into the loop. Okay. Now I'm going to say approve, submit. Now you can see that. So successfully the refund has been approved. This is the order ID, this is the refund ID, this is this. Now I'll go back, and what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say decline. Now you see the refund not executed, reviewer action is declined. Okay, the second. Third one, I'll say cancel. You see carefully, all the actions are captured. This is a cancel action I have taken, and that's the reason the refund was not executed. Now if I change this amount, so let's say I make it 45,000. So it will get auto approved. See properly, the 45,000 was auto approved successfully. This is the order ID, blah blah blah.
This is where agentic AI becomes enterprise ready. Not when the AI can call more tools, but when it understands the limits of its authority. Don't forget to like and subscribe to MuleSoft Academy for more insights on MuleSoft, Agent Fabric, and AI automation. Thank you for watching this overview of MuleSoft MCP Elicitation.